Hello, all you vital, relevant people at home and those that wish they were. Please click the link in the description box and please go to the page where I have embedded this video down at the end of the post, where you can see the other things that go with it, such as my suggestions for links or movies or books, and see some pictures around the manse. And welcome to Homemaking Radio. I hope you get a lot done, and I hope in your present circumstances, if they're not quite what you want them, that you still have great hopes for improvement and that you'll endure it as best you can. And today I want to start with the preparation. I'm sure you're all sick of hearing it, but if you girls are going to come to my school, you have to be prepared. And this is your passport to this class, is to take care of your appearance. And last time I spoke to you, I was talking about, because so many of us are vital, you know what vital means, don't you? We don't say elderly anymore. We are vital because our vitals are still good. We're still breathing. Our heart is beating. And all that is checking out still. And we woke up alive. So we're vital. And so our appearance, I think, if that's all you get done today, bathe and take care of yourself and put on the nicest thing you can and see what, keep a little diary. I have a little book around here somewhere that fits in my apron pocket, and keep a little diary of how you're feeling throughout the day and keep a gauge of your emotions and your delights and the things that you notice, your observations, when you dress your best and when you don't. Okay, so appearance. I talked about last time about bare arms because I like sleeves, and I'm a sewist and I love fabric, and a dress without sleeves just isn't as much fun, and I collect patterns that have unusual sleeves on them, and sometimes I'll buy a pattern that isn't everything that I like, but I like the sleeves, so I'll use that piece. And so I'm really into sleeves, and I was looking at some of the people in Congress, ladies in Congress. They are notorious, especially the conservative ones, for bare arms. I mean, I think they think it's one of the amendments, you know, like I think they think that bare arms means, you know, not wearing sleeves. And it's just, you know, the men, they're covered. They have a long sleeve shirt, even in the middle of a hot summer in Washington, D.C., they have a long sleeve shirt. They have a sports coat over that and a tie, and they follow a very good dress code. I would give them some slack and tell them they don't have to wear a tie in hot weather, but the women, unfortunately, those who even claim to be conservative are really bad about these dresses that don't have sleeves on them. And I wanted to read you something about that. Somebody sent me a book about this, and I want to read it to you. And so, let me see if she put a note. You know, when you kids send me things, please put a note on the inside to Lydia Ruth so I can figure out, remember, because sometimes your note or package or address gets separated from it. Oh, Karen Schaffer, right? Thank you very much, darling. That was a good thing you did here. I want to read some of this to you about the bare arms, okay? And it all starts in childhood. You know, you give your little girls a summer dress or a summer top, and they just love those bare arms, but it can't continue on into womanhood because there's always a chance that your undergarments, the straps might slide down, or that it just encourages too much of the wrong kind of movement. And yes, I understand we should be free to wear what we want, but in public especially, and I prefer sleeves even at home. They cover my arms and they cover the upper part that don't look too great. And so we need to think about some of these things, kids. And so if you were my girls, you would have to wear sleeves. And so I wanted to read about this book. It's called The Lost Art of Dress. And it's about these women that made dress codes for women that would allow them. It was about the working world, actually, and what to wear. And you know, so it would apply to us too at home, I think, because we're not away completely from the public. We do have to go out into the public. We do have to go get groceries. We do have to go and do our errands. And we will see people that come to the door. So she was describing in this book about people who were hired for their merits rather than for whether they were male or female. And she was warning not to make your femaleness an advantage to get ahead. And so she said in this one lady that was writing for the instruction on women dressing in public, she said, I believe with all my heart that it is essential for the businesswoman to be of the mode and as feminine as possible. And the danger existed. Here's the bare arm thing coming up here. And so, I mean, I know you're at home and it's your business, it's your home and everything, but let's consider the habit of bare arms means that when you start to, if you're not comfortable without your arms being bare, it's going to be hard to put cloth on them and feel comfortable. It takes a while. It's like the short dresses. The short dresses reigned supreme back in the 1960s, and you couldn't get a dress that was below the knee. So we got used to that, and when the dresses got longer, we found ourselves pulling them up to above the knee to be more comfortable when we sat down. But it took a while. It just took a while to get used to them, of keeping them down. And it's the same with covering your arms. It will just take a while to get used to it. So let me read what she says here in this book about clothing being bare. The danger existed because women's clothing often bared more flesh and form than men's. And I've often said, make sure your clothing covers more flesh than it shows. And that would mean that the trunk of your body which is where your privacy is, where your business is, you would be covering that more. So this was called the Kansas State Dress Doctors. Even pondered whether psychologists were right to think that women are more eager than men to combine displaced exhibitionism and exposure. Sleeveless blouses, for example, have never had an equivalent in men's business wear. In fact, we thought men didn't really look very good in sleeveless shirts. No, do not take off your suit jacket except in the privacy of your own office, scolded a book from 1938. And please don't make it worse by wearing a sleeveless blouse. That is the unforgivable sin. Another dress doctor who wrote for the Girl Scouts said that she was no prude, but a sleeveless dress on city streets, in offices, or at luncheons was very naked looking to me. Indeed, women on today's television news programs in the sleeveless sheath dress do seem naked looking when you compare them to the men in the jackets and ties sitting next to them. This is what I'm saying. You'll see men, they don't do that. They wear the button-down shirt, long sleeve, and a jacket right there in Congress, and the women are sitting right next to them in the sleeveless stuff. I wish they'd put a jacket on. And if the contrast doesn't give you pause, consider the fashion opportunity lost with a sleeveless dress. That's what I've been saying. See, she copied me. That's what I've been saying. There's more style in sleeves. I collect sleeves. You can make the bishop sleeve, which gathers at the wrist, or you could make the Victorian puff sleeve, which gathers at the top, or you could make there's a pattern you can get that's out now either by Simplicity or McCall's called sleeves, and it's only sleeves. You can add them to just about anything, and they all have names. And there's the pleated sleeve, and there's the tucked sleeve, and there's the one with the little tucks in them at the wrists, and there's so much more fashion opportunity. But of course, the manufacturing mills do not want to do sleeves because it takes more work, and you'd have to hire more and pay more to add a sleeve. It's just easy. And also, everybody's arms are different in size, the upper arm particularly different in size, so you'd have to adjust that sleeve to in many different styles and sizes, and it's more work. It's not one size fits all. So she says this is the unforgivable sin. If the contrast doesn't give you pause, consider the fashion opportunity lost with sleeveless dress. Sleeves can be businesslike, stern, useful, or romantic, depending on whether they are trim, full, cuffed, ruffled, frilled, etc. The first business clothing for young working women in the early 1900s had sleeves. It was a shirtwaist, which is a blouse worn with a skirt. Unlike custom-made Victorian dresses that fit like wallpaper, the shirtwaist was so loosely cut that it became the great inexpensive success of ready-to-wear garment industry. And some people didn't like it. A lot of people thought that that the skirt and blouse set put too much weight around the waist for the lower part of the body to carry around, whereas the Victorian dress started about here, and the weight was carried from here, or the shoulders of the whole garment. It says, unlike a dress, the shirtwaist creates a sharp horizontal break. Yes, the shirtwaist was a skirt and a blouse, and here's a picture of it she's got in her book, this lady. And she says, unlike a dress, the shirtwaist creates a sharp horizontal break. If you have a thick waist, or you don't have a thick waist and don't want to look like you have a thick waist, you don't put a belt or a waistband around your middle. And that's why, if you'll notice some of the dresses that I show on this blog that I've worn, they always have one straight line. They're not, I try not to do too much skirt and blouse thing. But she says here, this creates a sharp horizontal break in clear violation of the principle that vertical lines make the figure appear taller and more slender and more graceful. The different varieties of shirtwaists all had their bad points. The Gibson shirtwaist was unfeminine, cut just like a man's shirt, with buttons up the front and worn with a tie. The peekaboo waist, made of sheer fabric, was simply indecent. The ultimate fashion authorities agreed that the waist wasn't chic, but it was all in vain. American girls thought shirtwaists were pretty. They had been making and buying them for years. A variety of shirtwaists could be worn with the same skirt, and even those with tiny budgets could afford at least one. Wash out a cotton blouse at night and it will be dry by morning. This can't be done with a dress. So people that were interested in making women look more graceful and slim pointed out that if a stout woman opted for a shirtwaist, they must follow at least this one rule: let the shirt and the blouse be the same color. That's always more slimming and elongating. And even if you like prints like I do, just make a print the same, the top and the skirt. And one of the things I like about dresses is that they all hang on the hanger just right, and you don't have to wrestle with a skirt and a top on the same hanger, and they just hang so much better. Early on, the shirtwaist spawned a hybrid, the shirtwaist dress. It solved the problem of the break in color at the waist by making both the shirtwaist and the skirt out of the same fabric. Plus, you didn't have to worry about keeping the blouse tucked in. It was just a dress. You can still get patterns like that. It was a dress that looked like a skirt and a blouse, but it was joined, stitched at the waist. So I wanted to read that to you as to what the problem was concerning the bare arms and what people used to think of it. And now I will move on to your appearance to make sure that your appearance is what inspires you. And you may be saying, no one's going to see me today. I'm not going anywhere today. But you have to appear in such a way as that you feel good about yourself and the way you look. And it's a perfect example because you want to teach by doing and teach by being. And do you remember there was an old movie, Support Your Local Sheriff, and it was a little series, and I believe the actor was James Garner. I forget who the girl was, but she was awkward, and she was wearing men's clothes of the time, and it was a Western, and she kept burning food and tearing material in a dress when she wore a dress, and she was just so extremely awkward. But towards the end of the film, I noticed that her clothing was more feminine. It was such a nice contrast. And before I go too much further, I wanted to share what tea I'm using today, and you can see this teacup back here. It's Raspberry Zinger by Celestial Seasonings, and just opening it and smelling it is a great lift. Now, they don't wrap their tea bags, which I think the reason a lot of companies don't is that it affects the flavor of it once they get wrapped again in a, in another piece of paper. And they are being more careful now not to use bleached little bags to put them in so that you can use them without having to worry about that. And the ingredients of this, called Raspberry Zinger, are hibiscus, rose hips, orange peel, blackberry leaves, raspberry leaves. Okay, so even if I don't want to drink it, it'll smell so good in the cup. And then these cups, this cup was found I found it at one of those discount stores like Marshall's or Ross or Home Goods, which used to be TJ Maxx, and also reject stores. And it's from a company that's quite prestigious called Corner Ruby. And but then these were found with a great discount, not as much as you would see. That look, there's a rose in the bottom there, and they have a spoon that has a butterfly or a bee on it. That's what it looks like. I wanted to share that with you because I got them for when some of the grandkids come. We'll have a garden party and we'll use all those teacups. They have many different ones. Some of them are daisies and some of them are hyacinths or whatever. So that's what I'm doing today. And then I'm also going for a walk with Lucy around Venice, Italy. So she's the lady that I'll put a link there for you when you go to the blog to watch this. You'll also get to watch or listen without ads if you'll go to my blog. And so remember, when you walk with Lucy, what she does is she takes you around the city that she goes to early in the morning. Says she gets a lot of strange looks, but tries to get to certain places in the morning where there's not much of a crowd. And the lady that films her follows her around, and she mainly walks, but every now and then stops or keeps walking and does a little stretch. And I don't know if you remember. You who are vital might remember this. Do you remember before there were the common bathroom scale in the house? I think I was 16 before I ever stood on one. And I don't know why. We were probably a little more behind because we were part of the homesteaded movement up in Alaska in the 1950s. And I don't remember standing on a bathroom scale. We weren't even conscious of weight. But what we were conscious of, I remembered the ladies used to have a measuring tape, which they used in their sewing, and they'd measure their waistline. Now, why would they measure their waistline? Because it was believed, even back in Victorian times, that if you could keep your waistline, you kept your health and you kept your weight proper. So that is very interesting because I believe it was in a book called Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond they had written a book in the 1980s that was quite popular, and they emphasized the waistline too. And they said that your health is often determined by your waistline, because if you get too much fat in your waistline and it starts to be, not slim, that it forms a little system, a little maybe diabetic system there. And so the emphasis was on the waist, and we measured our waists and not so much on the scale. And I know that the scale doesn't always tell your health, because I haven't lost any weight, but with walking around with Lucy, things have changed, and the inches around my waist have changed. So while I still have virtually the same weight, and that way I don't throw the scale out the window because I'm so mad at it. But it keeps telling me the wrong weight. So there is the exercise that I am going to do when I'm finished talking to you today, is to go walk around with Lucy in Venice, Italy. Now, I have gotten so used to these different kinds of exercises that I go, and I know what they are, that I now am able to go for a walk around my own house or just around the perimeter of the manse, and I can still practice some of those exercises without the tutors. After a while, you don't need the schoolmaster. You don't need the instructor after a while. If you can figure out where you need the most stretches and where they have done you the most good, you can eventually memorize it all. And ladies, I hope that we can move on now to Emily Barnes, because we're going to talk about the home and young ladies at home. And I did do a video last time on young women as keepers at home, and I want to address the young women that are still home, maybe the homeschool daughters that are starting to question whether they should stay home or not. And if you're already gone from home and you're in your 30s, you just have to work from there and decide what you will do to get to where you can be a keeper at home full time. You just get as close to the model as possible, and it's from 1 Timothy 5:14, I believe, where it talks about keeping house, and Titus 2:5. But also to remind you of Peter Marshall's sermon was so excellent in this book. I use a lot of books because it gives me content that's copyright free, and I don't have to mention anybody's name and get permission from every single person that I talk about so I can talk about this. This is Peter Marshall's book, written by his wife Catherine Marshall, who wrote the story Christy. If you remember, it was made into a movie. And Christy was about her mother. But he had a sermon in here called The Keeper of the Springs. And he said, and it was in the 1940s that he wrote this, and he said that that Jesus Christ already liberated women, that they didn't need the national or political liberation, because he liberated them to be at home. And he lifted her up. And formerly, only the rich could stay home. Only the rich women could stay home. But we know now that God wants the Christian women to stay home. Maybe we see people all around in our culture, the women not being home. We can't help that, but we don't know for sure that we can boss them, but we know that God is our boss and that we can do His will, and He will greatly reward us for it. And one of the rewards is better health, better sleep, and actually better finances. There's not so much money going out when you're off going all the time. And even saw a lady online that had changed some things since she's been staying home. It was a long time ago. And she talked about some of the things that she didn't do anymore. And one was that she didn't stop to get a coffee on her way home. She bought herself a frother and all the ingredients she needed, and she made her own. And what a difference that had made in the less money going out. And everything that we do out there, we can do in here. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who said she'd simply stopped going to exercise classes and started doing them at home anyway. It's given her the greatest pleasure. One of the things I like about Lucy Wyndham Reed that goes on these walks that I'm following her now with exercises, that she says you can turn off the volume, put on your own special music. So if you wanted to listen to scripture and follow her along and follow her exercises, you just walk at home. You just walk in your house. You just stand in place if you want to. And if you want to just sit down and do her exercise, you can walk by lifting your feet from your chair. You can do all the things she does as a chair exercise. And one of the things I like about her, she says you can turn on your favorite music or whatever you want to listen to. So you could turn on scripture, you could turn on any kind of music. My family loves classical music, and you could do that, or you could just listen to her, or you could just, what I like about some of the exercise people is they're not trying to push their lifestyle, but just talking about health. So I want to read about Emily Barnes and what she said in her chapter here on, this is from her book, Simple Secrets to a Beautiful Home. And her chapter has, at the end of every chapter, was a style of writing that I just loved. That people would write these lovely books. At the end of every chapter, they'd give you what's called grace notes, or simple, hers were called Simple Secrets. How to put what they had taught in the chapter to action, and she had a list for beauty and surrounded by beauty and different things to make the home more beautiful. Why do we like to go somewhere else? Because it's beautiful. The beds are made beautiful. The scenery is beautiful. The food is wonderful. Things are brought to you on a tray. And I see the lady that bosses me all the time, which is me, that tells me I have to do a better job with my notes, and makes me sit down and broadcast before I forget it all. I see she has brought me a tray with a kettle and some things to drink on it, and so I'm going to go and do that when I'm finished talking to you. So she says, Simple Secrets. These are just little simple things to do at home on purpose. And I'm sure that if you get too much into the idea of women's liberation or feminism, which I don't want to call us feminine anymore, where it's gracefulness and graciousness and womanly graciousness. If you get too much into the working world, girls, some of you that think you're going to go out and work for money, if that work means so much to you, would you do it for free? This is the way it is in the home. We're doing it without counting the cost in money-wise, but actually we are really prospering better. But if you get too much into the working world, you forget those small, sweet things. It can take your mind away from those small, sweet things. Let me read her list here, Simple Secrets to Beauty at Home. Next time you take a walk, pick a few flowers. That's hard, of course, unless you're living near a place where things are wild and you're allowed to pick them. I live out near farmland, have a lot of wildness around here, and I can pick the buttercups, and I can pick the English daisies, and I can pick anything I want. Just don't pick anything out of someone else's yard or the garden. Tuck them in a vase by your bed. To add a touch of caring and whimsy, use rubber stamps or stickers on your notes and letters, even your bills. I know somebody that sticks a little scripture in her bills when she pays them. I don't know if people pay them by envelope anymore. This was written in the 1980s, I believe. Oh, no, it was written in 1977. Okay. It really takes me back. She said you could scent your sheets with a combination, and she mentions a scent from essential oils and some other things. As relaxation, mentions lavender, and she mentions you put lavender in little cotton bags or voile bags, and you could stick them under the covers and scent your sheets. She says, invest in something pretty to wear while you walk or work out. You know, when we go for walks, people are going to see us, and it has an influence. And it's not like you're trying to wear something big and billowy. If you'll notice the dresses that I show you afterwards on the blog, after I've spoken to you, they're rather slender and straight, and that's because I move so fast. I don't want to get a dress caught in a door or a hem caught and by my shoes. And so it doesn't mean that, I know people like to exaggerate, don't they, when they don't want to do something or they want to make fun of you. They can say, well, I can just see myself in a dress, you know, and their idea of a dress is a prom dress or a bridesmaid's dress or something like that. But no, you can go on Pinterest and find cottagecore clothing, and they're made of cotton, and they're beautiful dresses for the home. There is a woman on there that has a homemaking site, absolutely gorgeous, and tells you, you know, things you can wear to make homemaking pleasant and interesting. She says, invest in something pretty to wear while you walk or work out. And she said you can wear really colorful, nice clothing to walk or work out without it being immodest, tight, or anything like that. And she says take an afternoon off to play dress up. And I have a small collection of historical clothing, both from the Regency era and the Victorian era. And once in a while, I like to get them out and look at them and put them on. And I like reenactments. Like if I had you here and you were my students, we would reenact part of wives and daughters in our lives. And you don't have to wait until the culture changes. You just change your own culture at home. And you don't have to think that you missed out. And we used to hear people say, well, I was born in the wrong time. No, we weren't born in the wrong time. We were born for this time, and perhaps to share the delights of reenacting some of the good things of previous eras. And not much has changed. Sometime I will show you the paintings of Edmund B. Layton and show you that in the 1980s, many of those dresses were sold, maybe a little shorter, not so big and billowy, but the little scarves and the hats and things like that, it re-emerged in the 1980s. Get inspired by reading the story of great women of the past or the present, and make a pretty cover for your Bible or notebook out of fabric or paper. Invest in some classical CDs to give your home a touch of culture. And she suggests Strauss waltzes, Handel's water music, Mozart's sonatas. In the spring, now you homeschoolers, listen to this. This is wonderful. But you could do it for yourself. You know, we used to have, I think there was a catalog we used to get that would have a nature bag. And it was a bag that you could see through. You put it across, crossover bag or shoulder bag, and you collect nature. Put natural things in it as you went for a walk. And it was just a clear plastic. She says here, in the spring, take a child or yourself. Now, she was the first self-care lady that I ran across. I never thought to do this, but you can educate yourself. You can homeschool yourself. You can go on a Victorian or Edwardian or wives and daughters reenactment yourself. We all need to take a little bit of time to let our minds lie fallow and give us some rest from the seriousness of this present day and of this present life. And I'm sure people would like to say that we're crazy and take us to somewhere to get to see someone. You need the old saying was, you need to see someone, and it meant that you would go and get analyzed. And some people do it. Some people say it to intimidate others, and women will go anyway and get a perfect bill of health and put it in a diploma frame and hang it on the wall that says they're totally normal, they're totally sane. Or just make one for yourself. You know, you can give yourself your own test. And that's interesting. Online, you can find these tests to find out if you're stable or unstable. And you can give yourself your own test. In the spring, take a child or yourself for a senses walk. Well, we used to do that, didn't we? Smell the roses, the orange blossoms, the sweet peas. See how many different fragrances you can detect. Gently pull the little honeysuckle, the little places where you can suck the honey out of them. All these flowers have those. And taste the nectar. Close your eyes and listen for different sounds. A bird, a train, a foghorn, an airplane, a saw, a hammer. And look around and try to count how many colors you can detect. Do you remember finding a smooth stone and loving its cool touch? Find another one. And as you hold it in your hand, thank God for the strong and lovely gift of your femininity. Now, a rock has a great lesson to it. There is, where is it? I had a bulletin or something that said there are as many rocks as there are. I must have put it back in here. Somebody gave me that piece of paper. I don't know what in the world I did with it. Tucked it in here somewhere. And it was talking about rocks in the Bible. So I want to read that to you. Yeah. That there were as many rocks as there were references to Christ. I'll have to go and get the bulletin. And see, Mr. S does a bulletin every week, an old-fashioned bulletin. So, young ladies at home, there will always be a lure from outside, because here's the thing, is the employers love the homeschool girls. They love the daughters at home, and they like to ask, what are you going to do with your life? And of course, most of us don't know. We're waiting to see what God's going to present to us and what opportunities will appear that are right for us, and they will always bill it as an opportunity or a chance to develop character or a freedom or a contribution or a way to use your talent. Well, when they're thinking of talent, they're thinking of your labor as talent. And so the problem with employment is it gets you away from the home, where a lot of you, I mean, I don't even believe by 18 that you are fully developed emotionally or mentally or in your bones or physically, and that you should not have the right to make decisions that are so life altering. There's a big controversy about that even in Congress. You cannot make decisions that are so life altering that you may regret later on. Well, it's the same thing when you take part of your time in your life and you trade it for money away from home, where all you're doing is contributing to the success of someone else's business. And you may learn a little bit about business, but you're also sacrificing time that later on, when you become vital, all you vital women will agree with me, saying, I can never reclaim that time of my youth. I wish I had not spent it over there. I wish I had spent it at home doing things that developed my skills and my talents. And nobody really uses their talent in a workplace today. Not very many, not unless you have your own business. And there needs to be a girls' workbook list where you can list all of your abilities and talents and what you need to work on and what you think you have mastered, and ask some questions before you decide to go out to work. And those of you who are vital, it's tempting for us too, because people are wanting people that can get there on time, people that will do the job and not waste time while they're there, and that will be honest with the amount of work that they're doing, not trying to get out of work. Well, let's just ask a few questions about this before you decide to go to work, whether you're vital or whether you're 16, 18, and still home. Now, in the olden days, it was assumed, even clear up until around 1965, young women knew they would be at home until they met someone to marry, and then they would go into their husband's home. Now, I have an old poem I want to read to you. It caused great offense when I first published it on my blog. And I'm going to read this to you. And then I'm going to read a poem that I wrote for the young girls at home, the homeschool girls. They're the ones being pulled out and tempted and lured out the most because the employers want them. And also, it's kind of a subtle way of getting, not so subtle way of getting girls out from under their home and away from their parents and into the world because they want to help them, see life. And they think that they're going to help them with their character and help them understand themselves. But I just want to warn you about that. And those of you who are vital know, now that we know that the old ways was that a woman stayed home until, and she got ready for her new home. That's what the Hope Chest was all about. She was getting ready for her future home. And now that we know better, how many of you would have rather have been home, getting things ready, sewing, getting in the old days, you'd have a 3-ring binder and you would put your hints in it and your recipes, your favorite recipes in it, and you would have all kinds of herbal cures and herbal this and all ways to grow garden and stuff like that. You'd be collecting that. You'd be building that big amount of sheets of paper in that binder, collecting it, and you could start now and stay home. At 7 a.m., it's called Ad Lib, and it was written by Helen Lewis Coffer, and she lived from, let me see, she was in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. She was born in 1926, the same year my father was born, and she died in 2018. That looks like the same year my father died. And she wrote wonderful poems for young people and other people, but it's called Ad Lib. At 7 a.m., I don't envy the mob who rise, shine, and shower and go to the job. In rain, sleet, or storm, whether snowing or blowing, I stay at home and savor the joys of not going. Cheers to you dears out fulfilling yourselves. I'll bake me a cake and I'll straighten my shelves. I'll write some light verse and I'll practice some Bach. If my neighbor drops in, I'll take time for a talk. I'd rather have a family than fortune or fame. I don't think my apron's a red badge of shame. You're welcome to banking, computers, and math, guns, plumbing, and business. I'll take a hot bath. Art, music, letters, the good things of life, are no less my own since I'm mother and wife. If I scrub, mop, or dig in the garden, I'm free. Remember, the choices were all made by me. Now, ladies, I'm sure there are young people that aren't married that will say, well, that's just for the married woman. But when you read the scriptures that I mentioned, Titus 2:5 and 1 Timothy 5:14, you notice that it's addressed to young women. You may not be married, but are you young? And are you a woman? Well, then you need to start getting ready to be married, to have children, to be a mother and a wife. And you do that from the home, not from working outside of the home. And these days, you don't really have to work outside the home. If you make something, if you make cards, if you sew things, you can actually do that from a home and sell them online and never have to go and stay at someone else's place of work. And so I want to, because I was rather disturbed by the fact that it was saying I'm no less my own since I'm mother and wife, and I would give that to a young girl, but she would look at it like, well, but that's not talking about the single woman. Remember, the Bible doesn't even mention single women because they were either women under the protection and provision of their fathers and brothers, or they were women under the protection and provision of their husbands. And so I want to read, I just quickly did this today to write to a friend. So I wrote one to a young girl at home, maybe in her teens. So this is the vision I had of her, was that she's laying in her dear little bed and she's just barely waking up. She's not in a hurry to go anywhere. She had a nice sleep because she wasn't thinking about trying to, make the get up and go the next morning. That is really stressful, isn't it? The sun through the curtains says it is a new day. I stretch as I wake and hear my brothers at play. They are pretending to be men going off to cut trees for wood in the fire so we don't all have to freeze. There's work for me too. I don't live in complete leisure. Complete leisure. The family needs a cook, and my food gives them pleasure. I'm practicing for when I'll be out of this house to tidy the home of my future dear spouse. Okay, I'll try to put those on the blog for you. That's why I say go to the blog, listen to it while you scroll through. This is just a listen as you go thing, and you could get something done while you listen. I think that might be all I had for you online that I had saved up here for you to read. Once you do, get familiar with some of the artists of the 1800s to through the 1900s, and their art, because they always paint women looking very pretty in pretty clothes and pretty dresses, and some of them they even paint women sewing by a window and doing very domestic things. So you teach by doing and you teach by being. So I've read to you Emily Barnes, and now I'm going to ask some questions about being at home, and to be watchful for words like freedom, opportunity. You're so brilliant, you're so bright, you're so talented, and we are so proud of our children, aren't we? Because the employers all want them. Oh, it just makes us beam with pride because everybody wants them out there with them. But do you realize that that is going to be an influence, and you aren't of a real. It used to be thought that you really couldn't make life-changing decisions till you were at least 25. That was one of the reasons I think you couldn't get insurance on a car. You had to stay with the family insurance until you were 25. So list your abilities and talents that you are learning at home or could learn at home. I have talked to women who say that they have cut off doing everything they can that's outside of the home. They've learned to do everything at home. And have you mastered everything? Young girls at home think they've got it all down pat. They know how to cook, they know how to sew, but they haven't explored it further. They just know a certain amount, and they haven't explored further. So try new things. Try a new pattern. Try a new recipe. Learn to be skilled in many different things. Have you mastered everything? Is your room clean? Are your hair things in order? Is your laundry done? Is your ironing caught up? Is your correspondence caught up? Do you write a newsletter? Do you have a blog? Is what you're doing either at home or away from home showing that you're a good steward of the things God has given you? Does it show the way to other young women? Does it show a good example? What message is it giving? And I've thought of some answers too, and one of them was when you get asked to go do something and you want to dedicate yourself more to the home, is to say, I have permanent obligations. I have other obligations. That might stop it, but you don't need to tell all. Now, I want to tell you an amusing story about someone's aunt. And this man was telling me about his aunt. And she was a rather big, strong woman who lived on a farm back in the from around the 1930s to the 1980s, I think, was when she was alive. And she got quite elderly. She had managed her farm. She grew a little flower garden around her farmhouse, but she was a widow, and she hired other people to take the crop of wheat on her farm, and she provided lunches for them. And her cooking was so wonderful that a local restaurant in the town, nearby town, paid her to make the biscuits, the rolls, for their dinners. And I thought that was quite amazing that you could do that in those days, and that's how she earned a little extra money, or maybe a lot. And she got to where she was quite elderly, and so her daughters, and here's the problem with farmers, they got very prosperous, and they wanted their daughters and sons to have more opportunities, and maybe if if the challenges of life changed and it was no longer farming, they'd be ready for something else, and so they could afford college, and they sent them to colleges. And then when the kids finished colleges, they didn't want to go back to the farm, and but she had sent all of her daughters to college, and so she got quite elderly, and one of her daughters had to be the one to, they took turns taking her to her for her checkups at the doctor and for all her errands in town, because she did not drive. And so she was going in for a checkup on her blood pressure, and so the daughter came to get her, and was just being quite obnoxious during the drive, and saying, her mother had chastised her. She says, "You need to be home with your children. You need to stay home with your children. This is not good for your children, and you can't continue this way." So her daughter just spent the whole trip telling her off and telling her about women's liberation, and women had rights now, and they're all equal to men, and we can work if we want to. And it upset the mother so much, and she got into the doctor's office, and the doctor said, "Well, how are you today?" And it was, they, in these small towns, you knew each other. And he said, "Well, how are you doing today?" And she said, "Well, I was doing pretty good till I got in the car with a feminist." Oh, no, she didn't say feminist, because that word changed later on. It was a woman's liver. She said, "I was fine till I got in the car with a woman's liver." And I'm trying to think. Oh, yes. Another lady that in the old days that I was talking to her, she said that recently her one of her grandchildren came to have a vacation with her and Grandpa at a lake place that they had rented. And so the parents wanted this granddaughter to go and spend the summer with the grandparents, because she thought that their values would rub off on her a little bit, and she wouldn't be so difficult. And so this girl was so obnoxious during the visit, and she would tell her grandparents what a terrible life they lived, and they should be doing this and they should be doing that. And here, in the meantime, the grandparents were providing a home for this girl during the summer, and the grandmother was showing her how to fix tea and how to have a quiet life and mind her own business, how to sew, how to be productive, how to grow plants, how to just, and there were many other things. Even taught her how to write letters and how to do the many different things you could do on your own. And so the girl gave her such a hard time, and she said, "Don't you know that this way of life is going to be gone? It's on its way out, and it will only be seen in a museum, Grandma." So the parents called to find out how this girl was doing, and she said, "You really missed the boat with that girl." She told her own daughter off. She said, "You missed the boat with that girl." And I got to wondering about that missing the boat thing. I told you I like these figures of speech, but I don't think about them much because we use them so much. "You really missed the boat with that girl," she said. And so I looked it up, and missing the boat became an expression for missing an opportunity in life. And because people would get all dressed up and they didn't get to the boat landing on time. We know when boats were the biggest mode of transportation, that you could miss the boat. And so it became a common expression, which was turned into meaning something else, meaning an opportunity when you miss the boat. I really like that, because my father was he was a captain on his own boat. He took the test and to become a captain, and he had his own boat, and he had a fishing vessel, and also could turn it into a tourist vessel where my mother served tea and scones. So does the way you live as either a vital woman or a single woman at home, still home? If you're still home, you stay home, because I remember I wrote an article about this many years ago, And a lot of women wrote comments on this and said that after their experience of leaving home, to tell the young women to stay home. It's just not good out there. It's not. It's like treading water. You will have to spend everything that you make on getting there, on the clothes you need for that, and on your lunches. It's just like Taylor Caldwell. She wrote that article, Women's Lib, and she said that she was always worried about her car fare or her bus fare or her gasoline fare. And so if you stay home, you can benefit your family and help them prosper and set up a little nest egg. I would like to read Wives and Daughters to you, some of it, but I want to keep asking these questions about what you're doing if you're thinking you're going to leave home. Would you want your grandmother to do it? Would you want your mother to do it? Well, these days, you know, people think, oh yeah, that would be okay. Does it have eternal worth? Does it have eternal value? Or is it just temporary value? Who does it offend? If you went out and abandoned your home life, who would offend the most? That's what you find out, what kind of an action it is. Who does it offend the most? Does it offend your godly grandmother, your godly mother, people who have taught you differently? And who agrees with it? Is it the rebellious people that agree with it? Is it the ones who just really despise the home? Do they agree with what you're doing? You look at that. Look at the people that it offends and the people that agree with it. And does it violate God's standards in His Word for young women? Is it just a step away? You say, well, I agree with all that, keepers at home business, but it doesn't say I can't just go out, you know, once a week, twice a week, or 3 times a week. It doesn't say I can't. But do you realize that when it quotes those scriptures, her feet are not at home, that it also means that one step away from home, you know, is one step in the wrong direction. And I'm not saying we're all locked up at home. We know we have to go out often. So these are homemaking mistakes that many women probably have made, thinking that there's been crunch time and we have to get out. And we can get into all kinds of arguments about it. But the best thing to do is to do the work that you have set before you to do. I have an article. Oh, speaking of the boat and trains and missing the boat. I don't know why it was missing the boat and not missing the train, but missing the boat became the common expression. But a few years ago, I had been reading a story about a train trip, a train ride, and it was, you know, like in the past, and mentioned a train case. And I wondered what the train case was, so I was doing some research on it, and I found a replica of a train case, and I bought it for my daughter's birthday. And it was a little square zip-up case, and then I looked up the history of it, and what it was that you would have your normal luggage, and sometimes huge trunks of things when you were going somewhere on a train, and you didn't want to bother to open up the bigger one to get something you needed temporarily while on the trip. And so they invented something called the train case. It was a little square thing that you'd put your personal items in. It was for the women. And I imagine they might have even put some lunch in it. But you put your hair things in it and a few things that you would need without having to get into the bigger suitcase. It was like our carry-on. And so I was at the Dollar Tree the other day, dollar store, and I like to look at, you know, maybe some things, other things, and I noticed this little thing here, and it was flat like this and everything. Oh, I thought that's just some kind of a purse or anything. And then I got to looking at it, and it was in the same shape and size as the train case that I ordered. That was a replica of the train case that must cost quite a bit of money at the time. And of course, this was only $1.25. I've bought quite a few things at the reject stores that have lasted me for years, but that's what it looks like. It looks just like the train case. And of course, I think it's probably a lunch food container, but I filled it full of things for the car, and it was, I put a pile of paper napkins in it, serviettes, and some forks, knives, and spoons, just in case. I don't like to eat in the car, but just in case, you know, you might need something, you have a child with you or something, and filled it with that for the car. But it was for personal items, like a woman's, you know, her hair things, her soap, her hand lotion, everything that she would put in it. And so I liked it so much, I got another one for my grandson who's going to Greece. Why go off to Greece? And I got him a towel and a bar of soap. That was also a shampoo bar, which you can, so that you don't have to worry about taking liquids on an airplane. And so I got him a black one. Zip that up and show you what it's like. It'd be interesting to see how long these things last. And he was concerned about the size of it, but you can smash it down. And but the idea was that you could have, he could have reading material in here. He could have a notebook, a pen, anything like that. And it tickled me so much to get something for $1.25 that looked like something that I had previously bought for one of my kids, because I just admired these train cases. And they also were selling a more deluxe edition of these at these stores like Ross and TJ Maxx and the reject stores. They last spring I saw a lot of them around. They were quite expensive actually for that store. And so I'll put some pictures of this on my blog, and you can go and look at that. Now, ladies, I realize my time is running out, but I did want to read to you about what Linda Lichter had to say in Simple Social Graces. Maybe I will have to wait till the next time, but we still want you to continue to watch Wives and Daughters, and when you're finished, watch it again, listen to it. If you have some kind of big job, gruesome job that needs to be done, you can just listen to it. But let me see if I have everything I need here. So I want you to be sure to know that you're of great value, and that listening to this, I hope, has given you some feeling of worth in your home. And I'm just so glad that you came to listen, and I'm so thankful for you. I probably wouldn't be here if I didn't know that there were some that were watching, and all 20 of you. So ladies, I hope you have a wonderful day, and that you'll take some time for leisure. Take your time for a little walk. Do your Jane Austen walk, and since we are practicing the Jane Austen lifestyle here, where we don't turn on lights and we're just going to bed in natural light, and I'm feeling so good, and maybe not so vital. I'm not reversing aging, and I keep finding these teas, which I look up the ingredients, they're herbal online, and they'll say they're great for preventing premature aging, but my objection to that is I already have premature aged. What I need now is reverse age. So I'll talk to you later. I love you all, and stay close to Christ. Goodbye.